So yeah, Ryan J. Downey with Knotfest. What is up? I'm here hanging with Piggy D of the Haxons and of course of the legendary multi-platinum Rob Zombie band. How's it going, man?
Hey man, how are you?
I'm doing well, hanging in. And I'm very excited to talk to you about this show. I want to jump right into it, and then I want to talk just kind of horror in general and all of that. But tell me about this show with Gibson and the origin of it, the what it's all about, and how you got to be involved.
It's a really interesting story. For 2 years in a row, I went to the Palladium to see John Carpenter play on Halloween night.
Rad.
And yeah, it's one of those things that, like, if you're living in LA and that's happening and you don't go, you're that guy, you're kind of a prick for missing that.
Yeah.
So I went 2 years in a row, and the second year I went by myself. And as I'm getting to an Uber to leave, this guy taps me on the shoulder and he goes, "Hey, I'm Todd. I work for Gibson. Let's get in touch." And we stayed in touch for about a year. And right before the pandemic, January, right before the pandemic started, he approached me about doing the show. He had this idea for the show. And fast forward, I mean, here we are today. The first episode came out, but I got to tell you, it's been 2.5 years of toiling over every hair on its head. I mean, I thought making a record, could occupy your time and your headspace, but
Right.
this was a whole nother bag of tricks. And Gibson was already in the content, had really gotten into the content business and really made their mark with like the Icon series and some of the programming that they're doing on YouTube. And I got involved as an editor and started working on actually the Icon series. I helped out on the Dave Mustaine episode.
Oh, nice.
And it just as an editor, kind of got to know their process and how high their benchmarks are for stuff. And they're not fucking around, man. Like,
no, that stuff is very high quality. I love the Kirk Hammett episode I watched, the Dave Mustaine one. Yeah, I mean, Megadeth's the band that got me into metal. And so just when you think that everything, there's still, when something's done that well, there's still, like, even for someone like me who's read everything and interviewed Mustaine a bunch of times and knows him a little bit, is a huge fan of the band, I still learned something from the Gibson thing. That's when you're like, this is good.
Oh,
that's well made.
That's really cool to hear. We worked really hard on that. And that, just getting to know everybody over the course of the pandemic, basically, we scouted locations and we talked to guests. And I mean, it took a long time to come together under those conditions, because people just weren't leaving the house. This was before there was any thought of a vaccine or anything like that. Like, we started trying to cast the show, basically.
Yeah.
So, but really, honestly, the thing that I think we connected with over it, and I guess something that we read in each other, Mark Agnesi and Todd and myself, was that we missed the days of television and media uniting us. I mean, movies can come out on Friday and we all come around Monday morning, hey, did you see the new Batman? But it's so passing and it's so fleeting. And those moments, we get so excited for them, and then they're here Friday night and then they're fucking gone Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And there's just not anything there, at least in our world, that was really serving as that kind of a campfire for the horror community, for the metal community, and all those kids in between. Like, I go to Monsterpalooza every year.
Yeah,
and it's Slipknot shirts.
Yeah,
and it's Metallica shirts.
Yeah,
just as much as there's Dracula and Creature from the Black Lagoon and
absolutely
Return of the Living Dead stuff. We're the same customer. We're the same. We have the same heart.
Yeah,
and that's the thing that really connected it. And that I feel like is the secret weapon of the show. The show is really about love. It really is. And it sounds sappy to say to the metalheads, but like, it really is, man. Like, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 never left me. Every time it's on TV, I stop what I'm doing and I watch it, no matter where it's at.
Oh yeah.
And those moments where monsters and where rock music, and you're that kid too, like where they intersected when you and made an impression on you, like that shit stuck with you.
Mm-hmm.
And we really wanted to just have a place to hang out and talk about that, and talk about how there's, you know, it's kind of like the Goonies treehouse. Like we're taking it all back, you know, like this stuff was for us, and this is stuff that made us happy and still makes us happy.
Yeah. And still unites and has and can, you know, bond people like you and I are bonding right now and are about to bond even more. So because the show is, yeah, it's Gibson TV's, it's called Metal and Monsters. It's hosted by you, Count D, Piggy D, and we have the first episode is about Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. And yeah, I got to tell you, without even, you know, doing this in preparation for this interview, just my desk at any time at all times. This little guy is here is my like is my stress reliever. It just is always sitting here on my desk, and this dude is always sitting on my desk. This little guy, yeah, always
is sitting on mine,
always nearby. Yeah, it's the original Elm Street is my favorite horror film of all time. I saw it at a young, impressionable age, and I was, yeah, definitely that kid that loved punk rock and new wave and then metal, and was reading Fangoria. And you know, my older brother helped me make a homemade Freddy costume for Halloween. Yes. Because it was like, it wasn't popular enough yet that was a costume you could buy.
Right.
And I remember
amazing
talking to my best friend, you know, we're talking like 5th, 6th grade. And I was telling him, because I had read in Fangoria that they were making a sequel. And he was like, no, they're not. You're making that up. And I was like, no, they're making Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And he's like, what's it called? And I was like, it's called Freddy's Revenge. And he's like, that's a made up title. And I always vividly remember that, because he's like, nobody calls him Freddy. It's Fred Krueger in the movie. So yeah, I'm an old school Fred head.
Wow.
And it's just something, like you said, that you know, it as life goes on, you get older and you have to start family of your own and all that stuff. Like,
yeah,
I literally just this morning was buying some clothes from the Gap for my 8-year-old son, and they had a Freddy Krueger shirt for kids. Wow. And I was like, what do you think about this shirt? He's like, that's cool. And I was like,
oh, that's awesome.
I'm going to put that in our shopping cart.
Oh, that's amazing.
And yeah, and just all the different, you know, I'm very excited to compare Freddy notes and Robert Englund notes together in general. I can tell you quickly, you know, that, you know, obviously growing up with the movies, loving them, saw each of them in the theater. Wow. You know, I remember even seeing Freddy's dad at the Dollar Theater and getting the 3D glasses. But
yeah,
so when I first moved to California 20 years ago, I was a reporter at MTV News. And one of the absolutely coolest things I got to do was I got sent to the set of Freddy versus Jason in Vancouver. They were shooting with, you know, Ronnie Yu, the guy who did, you know, Bride of Chucky. And I spent the whole day with Robert Englund. And so it was just, you know, me and him. I did a sit down interview with him first out of the makeup. And then I did another interview with him in the makeup chair, where I'm just filming him with a little DV camera as he's getting the makeup on. We shot a thing for TRL where it was, you know, it's 2002. So he's threatening NSYNC and Nelly and in character.
Amazing.
And then I got to go watch them film a scene in the boiler room.
Wow.
Of him like creeping around the boiler room. So I'm just a fan, and also someone, I mean, this is ultra nerdy, of course, but I also grew up loving the series, which,
oh, you know, dude,
Robert Englund was Willie the vegetarian alien.
Yes.
And so, you know, I had a bunch of like V questions for him, and he's like, whoa, slow down, dude. But yeah, I've gotten to talk to him a couple of times over the years in interview settings. It's just so much. I'm sorry to be talking about it so much. It's such a huge passion of mine, the Elm Street series. And when prior to that MTV experience, I was in Orange County, California on Halloween Day in Laguna Beach on October 31st, 2001. And someone had told me that Robert Englund lived in that area.
Yeah.
And I was just down there for totally unrelated reasons. And I saw Robert Englund at the ATM in the middle of the afternoon on Halloween, getting money out of the ATM. I didn't approach him or anything, but it was just like such a like,
Wow.
you know, me, kid growing up in Indiana and being in California, it was just like, I'm here. I've arrived.
What a moment.
Just
Wow.
such a great moment. And then to the last thing I'll tell you before we really dive in is, you mentioned Dream Warriors and how it's still like a part of our fabric, you know, and how we still think about it. I went to, you might have even been there actually. They did a thing at the Whiskey a few years ago where Robert Englund and a bunch of the cast did a read through of the Dream Warriors shooting script.
Oh,
and
wow.
you got to go, and they had little VIP tables, and you watch them do the whole thing, and then there's like a photo op afterwards, and then you leave with an autographed script. And man, that was magical, because you know,
oh my God,
he was doing all his bits in character, and Heather Langenkamp was there, and it was just, yeah, it was phenomenal. So
oh my gosh.
So yeah, so for Dream Warriors to be the focus of the first episode of this Metal and Monsters, and of course it being like a very famously tied to hard rock and metal with the Dream Warriors theme song and Dokken. Tell me about this first episode, and feel free to be just as verbose as I was telling me about your Freddy love, because I could talk about Freddy all day.
Dude, I first of all, well, to your point, this is the 35th anniversary of Dream Warriors this year. We didn't know that when we were playing. No, yeah. We didn't. We weren't. We weren't watching that clock.
Yeah.
But we knew that we wanted Robert, and we knew we wanted Don together. And I guess it's such a great crossroads, because at least for me personally, that was the first one I saw in the theater. I tell the story in the show how Nightmare 1 came on, and my dad kind of watching over my shoulder on Kate when it came on Showtime or HBO, like early cable.
Yeah.
And as soon as Tina got killed, he's like, "You're going to bed. You're not watching this."
That's just not a murder. That's like a very graphic, disturbing murder.
It's still horrifying.
Yeah.
And I immediately had to go to bed after that. So I was bummed out that I wasn't going to get to watch the movie, because I was hooked by that point. But I also was really horrified. So by the time Nightmare 3 came out, I literally, as I say in the show, I was snipping ads out of the paper every week. They got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And by Friday night, I was like, "Look, man, you got to take me to see this movie. I'm busting at the seams to see this movie." And he took me. And it was just that, I just had that moment as that kid who loved hard rock, and as I say again in the show, it hit me right on the head. It was everything I needed to see, wanted to see, packaged for me, delivered on Friday night in suburbia. And, you know, Patricia Arquette was the greatest thing I'd ever seen since sliced bread. On top of it. So, I went home a very happy kid of 12, 13 years.
Her in that movie is just, oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah. she's incredible. Yeah. So I just, and the next day, first thing Saturday morning, I was getting one of my dad's old golf gloves out in the garage and trying to make a Freddy glove. I was fascinated by the lore of this character. And Robert, I grew up with V too. V was the first time I saw his face.
Yeah, same.
Every Friday night, I did never miss an episode. And he, at that age, was the Vincent Price of my generation, of our generation. Like, he was this classy, trained method actor that could slip into these roles. Obviously, Vincent Price is, Dr. Phibes compared to Freddy Krueger. That it kind of pales a little bit in
No, I know what you mean. Though. We had this like a lot of the Hammer actors. We had somebody who was this like kind of classically trained, theater person who's also this horror icon, and who isn't ashamed of the horror association, and really champions the culture and is really embraced, being so linked with such an iconic character. He loves it,
And that's a choice he made, because I was reading Fangoria, I was there at the newsstand buying the new Fangoria every time it came out. He fed that culture. He fed us he made the Fat Boys record, you know.
Yeah.
He made the Will Smith record. He was in the Dokken video. He showed up.
Yeah.
He didn't just let the studio service some clips and go, here guys, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
He got involved and he owned it.
He did did you ever see the Freddy specials that they did on MTV with Kevin Seal?
Yes.
Back in the day. And yeah, he's like in those.
Legendary.
So great.
Legendary. And I mean, he really wrapped himself as an actor around the franchise and around the character. And that, when you're a kid, man, that reads so much. Like, it's not this thing where you're, oh, I'm above this. I did this for money and I'm detached from it. He showed up at malls and like did it. Like, and that really feeds your excitement for something, even if it's an imaginary fictional franchise, like a horror movie franchise. But like, it really drives you and goes, oh no, I'm into this for a reason. There's other people that are into this, you know, because it's fun. It's a fun place to hang out, even though it's a horrible subject matter. But it's, you know, I was right age, right time for that movie. And by the time the fourth one came out, they did a marathon in Houston and played all 4 movies in a row. And, you know, I've had a moment with all of them. And the soundtracks too. Like, I remember the Freddy's Dead soundtrack came out and there was this little band called the Goo Goo Dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's showed up for that too. He's in their video.
Right. He's in their video. And that was the first time I heard that band. And that band came into my life at that record, at the Hold Me Up record when they were on Metal Blade. That band had a profound influence in my guitar playing. And I wouldn't have found them had I not been a Nightmare on Elm Street fan. Yeah. And it's really interesting how music and all of that stuff, when it's packaged and delivered to the customer, what we do with it.
Dude, Vinnie Vincent Invasion with Elm Street 4, like very, very clearly trying to like replicate the magic they had with Dokken, right? But I mean, and as a big Kiss fan and as a Vinnie Vincent fan, believe it or not, I was stoked about that too.
Iggy Pop, I think, was on was it 6? Iggy Pop,
somewhere in there in the later ones.
Blondie, I think, was on the 4th soundtrack. Like, there was, they made an effort to, like, you know, get to the kids, and it worked. In my case, it worked.
Yeah, I love that there's this show where you're exploring all this. So, well, having not seen it yet, I know it just came out today. What was the situation with talking to Robert? Did he come to like a set somewhere, or did you guys go to him? Or
we location scouted, and the LA theater was the winner. It just had a vibe, and it had that class that we were looking for. Yeah. But I mean, in all seriousness, when we were there, we had a few different security guards kind of show us around, and, you know, stage managers, people that knew the electrical in the building. That place is definitively haunted. Yeah. I'm not being silly about it. Like, the shit I saw documented on people's phones, I'm like, whoa. Yeah. That happened right here. It had a vibe, that place, and it had this unforgotten feel to it, and it just seemed like the right place to do the show, and it seemed like a place that kind of captured the energy of what we were doing. So we were really just waiting for a safe time for Robert to be able to leave the house and feel safe, and for all of us to feel safe. And same thing with Don. And as soon as it looked like, you know, last fall, as soon as it looked like we could all kind of get out and about and do stuff, we did. And we shot a lot for a week, and got a lot of stuff in the can. So fingers crossed it all goes the way it should. But we're pretty psyched on the first episode, because it really does say, like I said, it's a show about love, and it's a show about loving without any shame. The stuff we grew up on, and the stuff that we still love, and the movies we still watch, and the records we still play, and the new bands and the new artists that are making these things that are feeding the next generation. We felt like there needed to be a lighthouse for all of that.
And there's a nice full circle there too. Totally I might be mistaken in thinking this, but Lords of Salem shot at the LA theater
Correct.
at some point too, right? Yeah, so that's pretty cool. It's
In fact,
random,
one of the only times I was ever on set or involved in one of Rob's movies was Lords of Salem, and it was in that theater.
Oh,
I actually think the theater's haunted because of that movie. Because some of the shit that went on, that movie. If you're not in the right headspace, like, God help you coming out of that movie, because that movie fuck a dude up.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm convinced it's all his fault.
By the way, here's something else that I really love: the Metal and Monsters artwork, which I'm sure people will be able to see as they're watching this interview. But do you know the story behind that? That really cool, like, it almost looks like an Ed Repka. Like,
that's because it is Ed Repka.
Is it really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, myself a pat on the back.
Good eye, McFly.
Dude, that's amazing. So you guys went and got Ed Repka to make an Ed Repka-esque Freddy and Don standing next to each other.
I mean, talk about full circle. I mean, those Megadeth records, dude. That's one of the reasons we're even talking. That's one of the reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the band that got me into metal. That was the tape that my buddy handed me, and that
same here.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So that Peace Cells album cover, that was
it.
Yeah. That gets you right in. Well, dude, I can't wait to check out the show myself. Other people will be able to check out the show everywhere. The GibsonTV. There's more episodes on the way. You're going to be digging into Super 7, who are making all those great metal toys, and you have Bill Steer from Carcass in the mix coming up. And then also, while I have you, we should talk about, as we're taping this, Rob Zombie tour that just got announced over the last couple of days.
How about that?
How about that?
I can't believe we're leaving the house.
Right. I feel like everyone should be calling it the Leaving the House tour.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? We're leaving the house tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that summer tours with that band are a lot of fun. So we should be in for a good time.
Yeah. And I mean, and you certainly found the right band for yourself too, right? When it comes to combining monsters and metal and movies and all this stuff that we love, I mean, it's that there's the guy who lives right in that intersection. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's another, I guess, and you can attest to this too. Your life's kind of run very much parallel to this idea too. You're a magnet for what you're celebrating in your life, right? Like the things that you're wearing on your sleeve are the things that come eventually going, hey, you like that stuff. You want to come do that over here. Yeah. And Rob's one of those examples. Like, I was such a fan. I mean, and not just a fan, but a genuine appreciator of him as an artist growing up, and to be able to stand, beside him, just playing bass for 16 years. I mean, that's the longest I've done anything consecutively, So, I am in the right place. You're right. And it gets, and that's, as a monster lover, I get to express myself and have fun in that world. I'm an old theater girl myself, and love makeup and masks and costumes and all that stuff. And I'm right at home. Yeah.
Hell yeah, 100%. Dude. Hell yeah.